Whether you're looking to write 50K this November or you're just looking to increase your creative output, writing sprints are a great method to increase your speed, clarity, and creativity. It's like improv class for introverts. Hello, my name is Sophia Terrio. I'm a writer, musician, and creative, and today we're going to be talking about writing sprints. A couple of Novembers ago, well before I was diagnosed with FND, I used to take my laptop to work with me and write on my lunch breaks. I would write between classes in college if I had an awkward gap or break between them, and 2 years ago I would take my writing with me to a bar to flirt with my girlfriend, now fiance, in between short writing sessions while she was pouring drinks for other patrons. It was much easier for me to fit in these small bursts of writing rather than set aside hours at a time in the mornings or evenings, especially for an entire month. Whether you work, have a family, or go to school, you probably have other obligations in your life that prevent you from setting aside many hours each day for your writing. Enter the writing sprint. A writing sprint is a timed writing session, usually about 30 minutes or less, during which you don't stop writing. And if you don't know what to write, you say, I don't know what to say. I don't know what comes next. Here I am, writing nothing. There are many different free programs, Pomodoro timers, and even Discord bots who can facilitate writing sprints. But all you really need is a timer and your writing supplies. And sure, it's easier said than done. If you find yourself sitting down, opening your document, and staring at the last sentence you wrote for a good 10 minutes, this might be a practice you want to start using. At least to jumpstart your writing for the day. But I get it. Coming up with the words is the hardest part of writing. That's why it takes so long to write a book. You might know kind of what you want to say or what's supposed to happen, but actually putting it on the page is a different story. Writing sprints and pantsing do go hand in hand, though they don't necessarily have to. Whether you outline or not, writing sprints are still extremely applicable. If you've seen my guide to pantsing that I posted this October, you might have an idea of how I feel about idea generation, and if you haven't seen it, you can check it out up here. Now, it's no secret that I love a good writing sprint, but I'm not gonna just leave it at my testimonial alone. Let's see what the lady in the lab coat has to say about it. Your brain is a complex organ, and when you do something, your brain sends signals from one cell to another to tell your brain what to do. This is called a neural pathway, and the more you use it, the stronger it gets. Your brain is designed to get better at things with time. So imagine what your brain could do if you practiced writing quickly. If you train your brain to write for 30 minutes, you'll get really good at writing for 30 minutes. And this kind of thing isn't just advice that applies to writing. A lot of sleep specialists tell their patients to get out of bed every 30 minutes and do something different to make their brains tired. This is especially true for insomniacs. The idea is that you're training your brain to fall asleep within those 30 minutes so that you don't have to stay up all night tossing and turning for hours on end. Now, brains are tricky, and training yours takes time. Just remember to be kind to yourself if you're doing all these sprints and not seeing results right away. Especially if you've been writing slowly for a long time, it takes a lot of rewiring to override that existing neural pathway. If you participate in a challenge like the November Writing Month, or you're on a deadline, you might not have hours to spend writing every single scene in your book. You gotta get those words down, and pretty quickly at that. If you make a habit of sitting down and writing, no matter what words you're putting on the page, your brain will get really good at thinking while you're writing. Think about it this way. When you're having a conversation with someone, you don't take 30 minutes to process what they had said and come up with your response. No, you can do that in a matter of seconds. So it's entirely possible for your brain to do something very similar with your writing. This doesn't mean you'll always know what to write and you'll never get stuck. I've said this before, writer's block is a real thing and it totally sucks. But this is a way to safeguard yourself from it, if only a little bit. Doing writing sprints regularly lessens the time between the thinking and the writing, and your brain simply gets better at generating ideas and coming up with the right words in the moment, or at least words that are close enough for now.
But how do I remember what I'm writing about when I sit down? I have to read at least a little.
That's very true, especially if you're not writing every day or you just have a lot on your mind. It's not always possible to remember exactly where you left off last time, and while the writing sprint itself may only take 30 minutes, minutes or so, there will still be time you spend rereading what you last wrote, referencing your notes or outline, and things like that. So if you have longer than a lunch break to get your words on the page, I recommend something a little more lengthy. Instead of sprinting, maybe you try a writing marathon. For these long, intensive writing challenges, honing your focus to help you get a lot of the words on the page very quickly in small chunks goes a long way. You'll become very efficient at generating ideas and language on the spot. But that doesn't mean you'll get all 2,000 words in those 30 minutes. If you want to increase your daily word count, you can string several sprints together or create a writing marathon. A writing marathon can look however you need it to, but typically you'll start with a 5 or 10 minute warm-up. If you're just starting out with sprints, I recommend 5 minutes. And for those 5 minutes, you're writing and not stopping, just like you would in a sprint. But once those 5 minutes are up, you're not really done. In stage 2, you'll increase the time by another 5 or 10 minutes. Then you go again, and after that, you increase the time and go again, and so on and so forth. A typical structure for a beginner or someone who's not familiar with writing marathons or writing sprints would probably look something like this. 5 minutes of writing with a 5-minute break. 10 minutes of writing with a 5-minute break. 15 minutes of writing with a 5-minute break. 20 minutes of writing with a 5-minute break, and 30 minutes of writing. You can call it a day after that, or continue with several 30-minute sprints for however long you want. If you're really in the zone, you could continue to increase by 10-minute increments until you get all the way up to a 1-hour sprint. Although at that point, it's less of a sprint and more of a 2-mile run. For those of you who like the math of it all, that structure should take about an hour and 40 minutes, depending on how punctual you are with your breaks. You can always take longer breaks if you need to, or stop at the 20-minute sprint, whatever feels right for you in whatever time you have. And if you're marathoning with other writers, I strongly encourage you to take longer breaks and each read your favorite line from the sprint you just completed. For my personal intensive writing sessions, as someone who's more familiar with sprinting and marathons, my structure will look more like this: 10 to 15 minutes of rereading what I last wrote, 15 minutes of writing with a 5 to 10 minute break, and then 30 minutes of writing with a 5 to 10 minute break. And then I do 30-minute sprints until I've met my word count or run out of writing time. The reason I only start with one 15-minute warm-up is because it only takes me one warm-up to get back into the writing spirit. But I still make sure to do the warm-up if I'm doing several sprints right in a row, because it's kind of like stretching before you run, or like warming up your car in the winter before you drive it, or preheating your oven before you bake. It just gets your brain and your body in the right space for that intensive focus. Plus, in that first 15 minutes, I might remember I forgot to eat lunch, or that I do actually want that second cup of coffee, and now I only have to wait 15 minutes before I can remedy that. You can totally customize this routine to fit you. And in a minute, I'll dive a little deeper into the ways that writing sprints can improve the quality of your writing. But first, I want to impress upon you something very important. There is no one-size-fits-all writing routine. In fact, if there's 8 billion people on the planet, there's probably 16 billion ways to be a writer. The time of day, length of time, and even materials you use are entirely personal to you, and you'll have to find your own special recipe of those things. On YouTube, including right here on my channel, you'll find plenty of people who have all kinds of advice about ways that you can write or ways that you can develop your writing routine. It's a great way to get a glimpse into how other writers set up their days or get those words in. Please keep in mind that all of that is simply what works for them, and it might not work for you. You're not a bad writer if you're not up at 5 a.m. getting all of those words down before your 9 to 5. Most writers have other lives, families, jobs, school that they're fitting their writing around. If 30 minutes is too long for you to sit at your computer uninterrupted, then shoot for 15. Just do whatever you need to fit your writing into your life. Okay, so we've talked about how writing sprints can help you put more words on the page quicker by reinforcing reinforcing the pathways in your brain that generate ideas and language. Now, let's get into some ways writing sprints can actually improve the quality of your writing. Writing sprints actually decrease the amount of time it takes for your brain to enter the flow state.
Is that when your pen spits out extra ink on the page? Oh, I hate that.
No, it's not that. Let's let the lady in the lab coat explain. The flow state is a psychological concept coined by positive psychologist Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. It feels like being in the zone or locked in. The idea is that you're focused on a task that's perfectly balanced between being challenging enough to stimulate your brain and easy enough so it doesn't get overwhelming. Mihai Csikszentmihalyi was a positive psychologist, which is a field of psychology that focuses on happiness and positive well-being in the short term and the long term. Entering the flow state repeatedly is purported to have a positive effect on one's long-term meaningful happiness. It makes your work feel more purposeful and fulfilling. After all, if you're frequently entering flow, you're engaging with something of deep interest to you, getting lost in your work, and at the same time challenging yourself to improve. In the case of writing, you may experience it when the words are coming with seemingly no effort, or the plot is just clicking into place. The dialogue is dialoguing, and the scene is playing out like a movie in your head. If you've ever had those experiences, or any like them, you know how great it can feel. In fact, it may be the reason you fell in love with writing in the first place. It's so exciting when your characters simply come to life on the page, and that intense focus is the flow state.
Wow, flow sounds pretty cool, but I'm not a good enough writer to make my characters come to life. I'm still working on the whole motivation thing.
Aren't we all? But the flow state is not restricted only to the masters of writing.
In fact, being in the process of learning and improving is essential to the flow state. And this is where writing sprints come in. If you can hone your brain to come up with ideas more easily and quickly, then as you enter your writing sprint, you'll notice that you start entering the flow state very quickly after that timer has begun. It won't happen every time, and like I said, some days the writing is just a slog. That's just the way it goes. And you'll have to play around with how long you can sprint to achieve that balance. I find that a 40-minute writing sprint is long enough for me to enter the flow state, but by the end of that sprint, my motivation grinds to a halt. I spend the last 10 minutes watching that timer tick down thinking, when can I be done? On the other hand, if I only write for 15 minutes, I notice I barely get into the book before that timer's up, and I have to take a break. Finding that perfect balance takes trial and error, and may change over time. My 30 minutes might be your 20 minutes, or 45 minutes. And if you have no focus today, maybe try for a shorter sprint. Or if you're super inspired and ready to pour your heart out onto the page, maybe set the timer for a little longer, or forgo it entirely. Eventually you'll come to understand where your threshold is, and you can fit those smaller chunks throughout your day more confidently. When I completed NaNoWriMo years ago, I was often able to fit my whole 2,000 words into 2 or 3 sprints. Because I got so good at writing in 30-minute chunks, when I'd sit down at my desk, my brain would just start, because I had trained myself to write that way. Even now, when I sit down to work, even if it's not writing related, my brain has that 30-minute timer. I start to lose focus, or my mind will wander, or I'll think about when I can have a snack. And especially now that I have a disability, I have to keep a close eye on my energy levels and taking a lot of time to rest. So giving myself a check-in time every 30 minutes really helps me keep track of how much energy I still have, or if my body needs anything. Plus, I'm a huge fan of splitting a big project into small little chunks so that it feels so much more manageable. Now, in November, the word count is the name of the game. No matter how long you write, it's the words that make it on the page that actually matter. And I know it can seem counterintuitive to set up your writing structure in minutes instead of words, but this will actually help you take your mind off of the stress of how many words have you done today. And well, if you're 300 short, then you'll have to do those tomorrow, which wouldn't be really good because you're getting drinks with a friend, so you kind of already anticipate that it's going to be hard to get to 2,000 words tomorrow, which means that you'll have like 600 words to make up the next day, and all of a sudden you have 2,600 words to write, and that's exhausting. And all that can be a huge huge distraction when you're writing. And sitting down and setting the timer and telling yourself all you have to do is get through 30 minutes helps take some of the pressure off of the word count game. Again, some days you're just going to be distracted or tired or uninspired, and that's fine. There are some days, no matter what you do, that just suck. And actually, that's why it's so important to fit in all of these breaks between your writing sprints. Make sure you take those 5 or 10 minutes in between each writing session, if not several hours. Giving yourself space from your work is the best thing you can do to prevent burnout. Now, I know it feels like you're doing productive things when you think about your book 24/7. You're generating ideas, you're thinking about your characters, you're inventing dialogue in your mind, but the ideas that you generate don't actually turn out to be all that good. And then when you do sit down to write, you're already exhausted. You've already been thinking about the scene at hand all day and hadn't come up with any ideas. That's exactly opposite of the whole writing sprint thing. And ultimately, your idea machine is going to dry up and you're going to be so tired. And you're going to hate this writing challenge by day 10. Ideas will come on their own. You can jot them down, you can tuck them away, but don't sit there and force your brain to create more and more and more. You still need time to fill your cup. Let yourself rest. So if you've been struggling this first week of November, wondering how on earth people are writing nearly 2,000 words every single day, give writing sprints a try. And maybe you'll find that, hey, those 2,000 words happen a lot faster than you thought they could. This is an extremely difficult challenge, and inviting a friend along to sprint with you or even race is so much more fun. And soon enough, you'll be a flow pro. If you're looking for a place to dip your toes into writing sprints, consider heading over to my Patreon, where for only $5 a month, you'll have access to my Discord server, which already includes a bot that tracks your word count from sprint to sprint and allows you to compete against others. Me, in this case. And I have a healthy competitive side. If you liked this video, go ahead and check out my Writing Better playlist, where I break down lots of the writing process, grammar, and opinions floating around out there that you may or may not have already heard. And go ahead and subscribe down below because I have so many wonderful videos planned for this November, and I'm so excited to share them with you. Let me know in the comments if you've ever done a writing sprint and what you think of it. I would also love to hear what your word count is so far this November and what project you're working on. Without further ado, thank you so much for watching, and as always, happy creating.